Hello there, my name is Valerie, and today I am going to talk all about audiobooks. So, up until a few months ago, I had never listened to an audiobook in my life. I've always considered myself a very visual person. I have a hard time sometimes comprehending or concentrating as much with audio and no visual. Even when I watch TV, half the time I put on captions just because I don't always catch everything. So I just really didn't think audiobooks would work for me. But lately I'd been listening to a lot of podcasts and those had gone well. So one day I decided to go ahead and give Audible a try since I could get a free trial. So the book that I got for my free trial was Rising Strong by Brené Brown. In case you're not familiar with Brené Brown, she is a professor of social work who writes books about shame and guilt and fear and being vulnerable, and they're way more fun and mind-blowing than I'm making them sound, but you should definitely check out her books and her TED Talks. I actually have not finished Rising Strong by Brené Brown yet, but I listened to it that night when I got it and really enjoyed what I have listened to so far. So I thought, hey, I'm going to give this audiobook thing a try. So today I thought I would do some brief reviews on the 4.5 audiobooks that I've listened to thus far. Yes, 4.5, it'll make sense later. So it occurred to me that shortly after I discovered audiobooks, I was going to be taking 4 road trips of 4 hours each way in the next few months, all to the same city for 3 wedding-related events and a convention. So I figured that would be a good way to pass the time while I was driving to and from these events. So that is what I did. So the first audiobook I checked out from the library was Krakatoa, The Day the World Exploded by Simon Winchester. So this is a nonfiction book about a huge volcano called Krakatoa that erupted off the coast of Indonesia in 1883. Although technically it wasn't called Indonesia then, it was Java, which is one of the many tangents that the author takes during the book. He talks about the colonization of what we now know as Indonesia by the Dutch, which was stunning to me because I'm not sure I knew that Indonesia had been colonized by the Dutch. He talks about geology and the history of geology and the history of plate tectonics and how the theory of evolution was one of the many theories that helped contribute toward proving the theory of plate tectonics and the science of the barometer. I could go on. Oh, and he also talks about volcanoes. My absolute favorite fact from this book is that supposedly this was the loudest natural sound in recorded history, and people as far away as 2,000 miles away heard it. Like, how is that even possible? 2,000 miles? That's like being on the east coast of the US and hearing something in California. That doesn't even make sense. I just cannot even begin to fathom something being that loud. So overall, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that audiobook. I did have to rewind on occasion if I zoned out for a bit, but for the most part, I thoroughly enjoyed it and was eager to read more nonfiction audiobooks. So next I listened to The Other Wes Moore by Wes Moore. Wes Moore, the author, is a young African-American man originally from Baltimore who has gone to Ivy League schools, he served in the military, he's worked on Wall Street, and I believe he currently runs a nonprofit and has written a couple of books, including this one. This book came about when Wes Moore, the author, heard from his mom that there had been an article in the paper about another young African-American man named Wes Moore from Baltimore who had been arrested and sent to prison for life for murder during a robbery. And Wes, the author, couldn't get that story out of his head, so he decided that he wanted to meet this other Wes Moore. I think he started out writing letters to him, and they eventually did meet, and he just wanted to talk to him and try and figure out what it was about their pasts that started out so similarly and where it diverged and how their lives could start off so similarly and in such drastically different places. So the book was basically about a short biography of both of their lives, with one chapter alternating between each one, and it was very interesting, and I won't say a whole lot more about the plot or how they both got to where they were because I think you should read it. But I think it's a very important book, especially in terms of how we look at education and systemic racism and poverty in this country. The next book I listened to was Flash Boys by Michael Lewis. This is another nonfiction book about basically how the stock market currently works today. And it's basically pointing out that the stock market does not work like people tend to picture the stock market. The author was saying how you always picture, guys in suits on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange waving papers and yelling at each other and things. And that's pretty much not happening anymore. As of now, the stock market is pretty much run entirely by computers or people using computers. And in the new digital world of the stock market, speed is everything. Microseconds can cost a company millions of dollars. So it was really, really interesting to hear all of these ridiculous tricks that stockbrokers and various other financial institutions are using to make money. I thought the book was absolutely fascinating, and while he did lose me a few times, since I don't exactly have a background in economics at all, I thought he did a pretty good job of describing these concepts of the stock market to where a layperson could understand them. So I would definitely recommend this book as well, especially if you're remotely interested in the economy or the stock market or corruption in financial institutions or anything like that. I then started another nonfiction book called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by Dee Brown. It's a very well-known book describing the atrocities committed against Native Americans in the 19th century. And while it was breaking my heart reading about these events because they were even more horrendous than I had thought that they would be, I wanted to keep reading it because it was very well written, and I think it's so important as an American to know that history. But unfortunately, halfway through disc 4, the CD started skipping, so I had to give them back to the library, which made me really sad. So I'm hoping that maybe by the end of the year I can find a physical copy at the library or get a physical copy somewhere so that I can finish the book, because I really want to finish it. So those were all nonfiction books, as you may have noticed. I was a bit hesitant to read a fiction book through audiobook, mainly because one, a lot of the books, not a lot of the books, but some books I read are fantasy, and I didn't want to read a fantasy book via audiobook because I thought it would be difficult for me to keep up with the names. Fantasy books have, odd names and odd names for places, and I just thought it would be too difficult to keep up with. So, and I just wasn't sure how I would do with a fiction book on audiobooks. But the other day I was at the library, and by the other day I mean like 2 weeks ago, and I saw The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins on audiobook, and I had been tempted to read this. I'd heard mixed reviews on Goodreads and on YouTube, but I decided that I was going to give it a shot. If you haven't read it or heard of it, it's a mystery thriller. I don't want to give too much away because I really liked it, and I think you all should read it. So like I said, I wasn't sure how a fiction audiobook would work, and honestly, I loved it. I was absolutely enthralled from the first disc. I think what really made it so perfect, in my opinion, at least via audiobook, was the acting of the 3 women who voiced the 3 women characters that tell this story. And their acting was just phenomenal. Like, I think because I had only read nonfiction audiobooks, it didn't occur to me that there would be acting in an audiobook, because the nonfiction authors were just like, this happened and then this happened. And so there was no acting or emotion like that. Whereas reading The Girl on the Train, like, especially the main character, Rachel, like, she was a very good actor, and there were points where the actor would sound like she was crying, or like she was terrified, and all of these different things. And it was really immersive, and it helped me to put myself in the story. And I think that was what helped me to listen and comprehend better than I thought I would be able to with it just being via audio. So if you haven't read The Girl on the Train, or even if you have read it in physical form, I would recommend the audiobook. It was a treat to listen to. I was listening to it on the way to and from work, which is another reason that I really wanted to give audiobooks a try. It's the main reason I wanted to give audiobooks a try, so that I would actually have more time to read, because I have a bit of a long commute driving. So I can't exactly read a physical book while I'm doing that. So, but yeah, I was reading it to and from work, and I would get to work, and it would be like at the middle of an exciting part, and I would have to stop and go into work, and it was torture. I think the last day, the day that I finished it, when I got to work that morning, I still had probably the equivalent of like less than 20 pages left. And so it was torture having to go inside to work and then wait, 8, 9 hours before I could come back to my car and finish the book. So, but I did finish it on the way home. So, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would recommend it if you're new to audiobooks like me. I think it was a really good choice to start with. In fact, I wonder that I may have been spoiled because this one was done so well. So if you're into audiobooks, or if you've listened to a particularly good one, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about more good audiobooks, so that I can get more reading in on my way to and from work. I already have checked out Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I think that's the name of it. I keep seeing it on Goodreads, and when I found out that Lin-Manuel Miranda did the narration for the audiobook, I was sold. So I'm like 2 pages into that. But if you have any other recommendations, I would be very appreciative. So let me know what good audiobooks you've read, and I will see you guys in a new video soon. It'll probably be my June wrap up, probably sometime next week. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching. This is Tiny Kitty, who has a very inaccurate name.